okay? So you can leave it sitting on your table and you can start to just pull that little edge up with your fingertip all the way around. Hiding that seam. See, you can see it's kind of hidden there, but I've blended up here. Some people like to leave it rough and textured because it kind of looks like grass. Or once you go around once, you can go around a few more times and just make sure that it's nice and smooth if that's what you're going for. Getting most of the big bumps out. If you hold it in your hand like this, like I am, put a little bit of pressure with your thumb and your fingers. You can see how if you don't, it collapses here, but if you squeeze a little bit, it keeps it open. Okay, and that's what you want. You don't want it to collapse. All right, once you've gone all the way around and you've smoothed with your finger, you're going to take your little piece of your sponge and you're going to get it a little bit wet, wring it out good so it's not really drippy, and go ahead and start cleaning those blend marks if you want. Working all the way around. You can even clean up the seam a little bit. You can see how there's some little bits of water and clay. Just use your sponge and run it down the seam. I'm going to choose to leave mine visible like that. I'm not going to hide my seam by blending it in. The same blending process that you use here to do the foot or the base to the cylinder is how you'd blend that seam if you chose to blend it all in. But I like to leave this seam. Sometimes I even put like little stitch marks in there. All right, so now you have your cylinder together. Your bottom is on. You're ready to do your handle. If you want to modify your shape a little bit, this is where you would do that. Meaning, if you want to put a bit of a belly to your mug, you can do that at this point. It is challenging, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it the first time, but you can if you want. Before you go ahead and do any more work on your cup, what I'm doing here is just taking my sponge with a little bit of water on it, and I'm rubbing it around the top, around the outside, and around the inside, just rehydrating it so it doesn't crack as I continue to do any more work. Okay, so if you're wanting to put a little bit of a belly on it, you just put your hand inside and you start pushing out with your fingertips. And you'll keep doing that until you get a bit of a belly on it. I'm not going to do that for this mug, but that's up to you. All I'm doing is putting my hands inside and trying to straighten any of the dents that I made while I was holding it. You're going to take the paintbrush from your kit and just go on the inside with your dry paintbrush. You can't really see inside there, but you're going to take your dry paintbrush and just move it around that seam on the inside. That's cleaning up any water that may be in there. Now you're going to take your leftover piece of clay. You may have a bit more clay left over. This was the piece of clay I used from trimming the base. I also have the piece of clay I used earlier, which if you have that much left over, feel free to make something else and send it with your cup. So you're going to take this, squish it all up, and you're going to roll out a hot dog using your entire hand. So right from your fingertips all the way to your wrist, nice even pressure. Do it slowly, you'll get a much nicer hot dog. Do it too fast, it'll be lumpy and bumpy. So you can see how I'm going slowly and I'm rolling my hand not just in one place, but I work my way across the clay. Here's my hot dog. Now I'm going to flatten it with the heel of my hand. I'm just going along and flattening it. You want to flatten it so it's about maybe 1/2 inch, a little thicker than the body of your mug that you rolled out with your rolling pin. Sometimes I tip it up and I tap it just to make it nice and even. Okay, before I do anything else, I want to just take my sponge, rinse it out a little bit, and rub a little bit of moisture into it. And then I'm going to either turn it into a candy cane shape like this. Just press it there so it doesn't want to tip over like this on you. So I just push underneath here. Okay, you can have a candy cane like that, or you can have a C shape like this. And then you're gonna let it rest for 1 to 2 minutes, just to put that curve shape into it, so that when you attach it to your mug, it's not going to want to pop off and go back to being straight. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at my mug and decide where I want to put the handle. Some people like to put it right on the seam. You can choose to do that if you want. I like to maybe have the seam off to the side so I see it when I'm drinking, and I'll put my handle on this side. So while my handle is resting, I'm going to take my stick and I'm just going to press the tip in to create little lines to make it almost look like I sewed the mug together. You can support the inside when you're doing that with your hand. Just straightening it all up. All right, so I think, looking at it, I'm going to put my handle more over here. All right. Now you get to decide how big you want your handle. Do you want all of your fingers to fit through it, or do you just want to have 2 fingers fit through it? You may or may not want to use this whole piece. I'm going to trim it because I don't want to use this whole piece. So I'm just going to lay it down like this, and I'm going to cut off these ends. Now you could be creative and make your own kind of handle any way you want. Just be careful you don't make it too thin. You don't want your handle to be thinner and feel really uncomfortable, like it'll break when you hold it, because it's a lot smaller than your mug in proportion. So now you can see I've trimmed it so that maybe 3 fingers will fit under it, and I'll put it on like this. Before I go put it on, I'm going to scratch here. I'm going to scratch here, and I'm going to look at my mug and decide where I'm putting it on here, and mark it as well. Okay, so I've marked the top and the bottom. Okay, then you're going to take your water, put some water on those scratches everywhere that you scratched. Okay, and you're going to start with the top, and you're going to put your finger on the inside to support the inside, and press and jiggle and twist to get your handle to bind to the mug. And then do the same thing for the bottom. Jiggle back and forth. Put your hand on the inside to support it. Okay. Whoops, I put a big dent there. Just blend that out. All right. Okay, and then make sure you take a look at it from the top so it's not on crooked. And from the side. And then you can use your sponge. Make sure it's wrung out really good. We don't want to add water, we just want to blend it in. So you can use your sponge and you can clean it up. You can use your fingertips and you can clean it up. Okay. And then you've got your handle on. Feel free if you want to add little, some people will roll a little ball and flatten it out, and you can glue it on here as like a little thumb grip. So you want to make sure you scratch, you rub some water, and you press it on like a little button there. All right, now you're gonna take the piece of plastic that came with your kit and you're just going to loosely wrap your handle. Just the handle, not the whole cup. You just wanna protect the handle so that it doesn't end up being the first to dry. If your handle's the first to dry, it'll crack when the rest of your mug dries. So we slow down its drying just by loosely covering it. If you want to change the rim a little bit, you can support your mug and use a damp finger and just gently run your finger over the edge. You can push it out a little bit. Make sure your mug isn't too dry or it'll crack when you do this. So I would suggest just running some water around the outside and the inside. Support the mug and then use your fingertip to just go back and forth gently. Turn your mug a little bit, do the next section and work your way all the way around. Just flares it out a little bit, allowing a nice area to drink from. Make sure your finger stays kind of wet so it slides nicely and doesn't stick as you're pressing out. And you don't want it to flare too much or get too thin where it might crack. There you go. Now I'm gonna leave this for a couple hours. Might even leave it until tomorrow so that it becomes a lot stiffer and I can hold it and move it without squishing it and changing its shape. One thing with your handle, you want to make sure that you can still have room to put your fingers through, as this space here will shrink a little bit in the drying. Don't make your handle too big that it sticks way out and it wants to fall off. If you feel like your handle is pulling here or it's pulling on your cup and it's making your circle oval, take a little scrap of your clay and just roll it like a little support that you can stick underneath. Don't glue it, just stick it right here and it'll support this from wanting to come off while it's drying. It'll prevent gravity from pulling on it. Another thing is you have a paintbrush that you got with your kit. You're welcome to use it as well for cleaning up this seam. It fits nice in these areas. You're not adding water, you're just using the bristles to blend and take away any water that's currently there. Just by passing and rubbing through there. You can also use it to take out your water here. and smooth your seam nice there.